Welcome to the Diamond Hands podcast, where medicine meets momentum and branding becomes a leadership system. I'm Leslie Tracey, co-founder of Diamond Hands Media. I build aesthetic brands that lead, with a background in employee benefits and business finance, so brand becomes authority and asset value. This is mindset, money, and marketing for founders building brands that run without them. Because brand isn't a logo, it's how you lead. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Diamond Hands podcast. Today we have the attraction doctor himself, Dr. Stephen Dayan. So he's a double board certified facial plastic surgeon, professor, and he's an internationally recognized leader in aesthetic medicine. So he's a clinical professor at University of Illinois, and he's also the founder of De Novo Research, and they do a lot of research in the aesthetics industry. As you guys already know, you guys are all in aesthetics. So he's at the forefront of innovation and plastic surgery and dermatologic research. And his work has led to over 200, not one, not two, I'm gonna say it again, 200 published medical articles and 6 books, including New York Times and USA Today bestsellers. And him and his wife, Dr. Sabrina Fabi, have founded XOMD Skincare. And he brings that expertise. We're gonna get into that a little bit more today. So that's a Mood-ceutical, and you guys may or may not have heard about it, but we'll get into it a little bit later. So welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy you're here with us. So, I just want to, because everyone knows who you are now, all these things that you're doing, but I always like to start at the beginning. And just a little taste for everyone. Can you tell us a little bit more about what made you want to become, a plastic surgeon in the first place? So did you know by 7th grade? Like, what was that story?
Well, it's a long story and probably better over a bottle of wine, but if you got a second, I'll try to abbreviate it. I started out, I'm a son of an immigrant, and my dad barely spoke English. My mother was disabled with multiple sclerosis when I was really little, so I ended up taking care of her, and we actually spent a lot of time, I was on welfare for quite a while and getting my lunches for free. And anyone who is a son of an immigrant kind of knows that you have a choice. You can be a doctor, lawyer, or an accountant. And I thought I was going to be a doctor, but I had no idea what that really meant. I was a horrible student in high school. I mean, not horrible, but I was very much middle of the road. I was not getting A's and B's. I was in mid-level classes. I was getting mostly B's and C's. I went up to college. I don't get in. And my dad says, but son, you're going to go to University of Illinois, right? Because that's the school that's the least expensive and you're going to be a doctor. I said, yes, Dad. But I didn't have the heart to tell him I didn't get into school. I got rejected. So I'm like, okay, my grades are not good. What am I going to do? Luckily enough, a football coach from Washington University in St. Louis said, you want to play football for us? I'm like, yes. Where is it? They said St. Louis. I'm like, okay, I'm in. So I go there to play football. I didn't realize it was a really good school. And once I got there, I recognized that I was not going to be a professional football player. So my delusions of grandeur of being a professional football player was not going to work. I started studying really hard. Next thing you know, I was getting straight A's. And then from there, I applied to med school, and I got into every med school I ever applied to, and except for one. The only med school I didn't get into was Harvard, where I got waitlisted. I really wanted to go there, but I got waitlisted. I got into every other med school, and all I could afford was University of Illinois. I went to go for free because I got a scholarship. So I got to UVI, went there for med school for free, and I was going to be a neurosurgeon. So I was dead set on being a neurosurgeon. That was my goal. And there was a guy in the community who I liked a lot, and I always respected him very much. And he had a beautiful house, a beautiful Ferrari car. He had a pool. He had a great practice, and he had a daughter that was gorgeous. So I already had it figured out. I was gonna take over his practice, get his house, his car, marry his daughter, and be in. That was the plan. And then I get to graduate. I call him up, and I said, I'm thinking about applying to neurosurgery. I've already gone to the match. Where should I go? And he convinced me not to go into it. He said, it's not the field that you think it is, and it's not an easy lifestyle. And for many reasons, I suggest you pick another field in surgery. So I was always an artist. I sculpt. You can see behind me. I was a sculptor for many years, and I have many sculptures, and I loved art, and plastic surgery was my second choice. So I went the plastic surgery route, and that's how I got there. It's so me, and it's I love the science of attraction, but it's interesting that I bring in a lot of the neuroscience that I studied when I was in medical school into my current portfolio of thinking and practice. And I was an evolutionary biologist and religion minor in college. So you can see that comes through. So all my writings, I really dig deep and I go back to those roots because it helps me to better understand what I'm doing today and how I can be a better physician.
I find that so interesting that, you really combine like, because philosophy, religion, it's so funny. I study religion too. And so it's like when you have that kind of like philosophy and you're like, you're thinking, it affects how you write, it affects how you think. And then you bring in the science piece. That's quite the story. Wow. And
It sure is. Yeah.
so basically, you didn't take over his business, you didn't marry his daughter, those plans didn't ship out for you. So, at what point, when you got into your career and everything, that you said, okay, I'm going to actually open my own practice and kind of like do my own thing? Was it that you were working for someone else and you're like, oh, I don't like it here? Or was it kind of rebellious streak like, I, I don't want to be told what to do? Like, what was it?
Well, Les, these are great questions. It's rare that someone comes to me with these questions, but these are the most important fundamental questions of where I am today. You only know where you're going by looking backwards to where you came from. And I'm glad you're asking that. So for people out there who really want to get inspired, I think this is more inspiring, hopefully, to them than talking about the modern day. But yeah, so I'm happy to tell you that when I first went into practice, I decided to go off on my own. And that was a tough decision because back in the day when I was graduating, you joined a senior doctor, you worked for him or her for many years. You were supposed to go to the emergency rooms and sew up kids in the middle of the night, and then hopefully the moms would come to you for facelifts. There was no such thing as Botox or fillers. There was no non-surgical treatments. There weren't injectors that like there is today. It was a very different field. It was plastic surgery, and it was very patriarchal. It was run by a bunch of older guys with gray hair who told you what to do, and we just did it. There was no science behind it. It was very informal. So a couple of phone calls were made. I got a job and I decided that I was going to go off on my own. So there was a guy who was retiring, and many people don't know his name today, but back then he was a big deal. His name was Dr. Tardy. He was at University of Illinois where I trained, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to retire. Do you want to take over my practice, whatever that means?" And I said, "Okay." And I was part time at the university and part time taking over his practice, and then he left after 6 months, and I was just sitting there like, "What do I do now?" I had no desk. I had no computer. I had no patient charts. I mean, everything was on 3x5 cards. I created my own website. I did everything from the beginning, and I decided not to take insurance. And I'm going to be a plastic surgeon. I'm not going to take insurance. I'm just going to do cosmetic. And that was very bold to do back then. I got a call from the emergency room saying, "We need you to come down here to take care of an emergency in the trauma unit, a bleeding nose." And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm a plastic surgeon." And I'm like, "Uh-oh, they're going to kick me off staff." But they didn't. And 6 months later, the chairman of the department sent me his daughter for her nose. So I stood my ground, but I was very convicted and I was very driven. And I was just naive enough not to know what I don't know, which was good. And I had a mission, and I was on a mission to conquer the world. And I knew that I may never get there, but I wasn't going to stop trying. And that still drives me today. I want to change the world. And I keep thinking like that. And interesting, when I first went to practice, it wasn't about plastic surgery. So I created a mission statement. I tell everyone to do this, and many people don't know what that means. They think, "Oh, it sounds sophomoric." But if you create your mission statement and you put out there what you want to do and you put it up on your wall, eventually you're going to do it. And everyone who comes into your office is going to know what you are aiming to do. So I wanted to make people happy. That was it. I wasn't giving them better plastic surgery. I wasn't giving them better nose job, better jawline. I want to make people happy. I was going to use my tools as a vehicle to accomplish that. So how do I do that? Sometimes it was surgery, sometimes it was non-surgical treatment, sometimes it was skincare, and sometimes it was nothing more than a conversation. But they walked out the door feeling better about themselves. And that mission still drives me today. I want to make people happy. And I do my best that I can to do that within reason. And that's been very, very good for me. And then I got very lucky because a little curious product called Botox came out right when I was graduating. And I'm like, wow, this thing is great. 95% satisfaction. And at that time, nobody wanted to do Botox because it was either beneath them or it wasn't cost effective to do it because one vial cost $400. And if you were charging a patient $400, you barely made your money back on one patient. But at the time, I wasn't seeing anyone. I was sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I thought, well, if I get them in the door with Botox, I'll put my hands on them. Hopefully, they'll fall in love with me. They'll get a great result, and they'll come back for surgery. And in 2007, I published a paper looking at my first 5 years in practice, and 48% of my patients who got Botox ended up having surgical procedures. So I used it and I leveraged it as a marketing expense. So it wasn't out there to try to make more money. It wasn't out there to get greater awareness as a Botox expert. I used it as a way to get people in the door, and it worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, because so many people, well, you kind of got that. People are understanding that more now because they're more savvy and there's all these things out there. But it's just like sometimes you have to use kind of like a gateway drug, very literally here, to get them into the thing that's going to be the big spend, right? And essentially, it's making them happy because now their base is different, their nose is different, whatever they wanted, and they're happy because they came to you. So I really love that. And just so our listeners, you guys are in their first years of business, whatever, usually between like 1 and 4 years of business are my listener base. And so my last question I want to ask about the business piece, because, that mission is so important. And so many people, as you said, don't start with that. They just kind of do whatever and see what sticks, but there's nothing actually guiding them. So if you didn't have that mission statement, or rather, not mission statement, I would say, how did your values actually ride off of your mission statement? Is that something that you actually had very clear when you started as well?
So another thing that I relied on is when I first graduated, and I want the listeners to remember this too, 'cause this is a good story. When I first graduated, I came out and I was young. I was 32 years old. In fact, I thought about graying my hair at the time because I wanted people to think I was older. Because who's coming to a 32-year-old for plastic surgery? I was deeply in debt with the bank. I
Yes.
had two little kids, and and I was working around the clock. And I realized something, that I may not be the best plastic surgeon out there. I think I am, but the consumer might not think that. I'm certainly not the most experienced plastic surgeon in the community. But there was one thing that I could do that I knew that could never be doubted, and that I could work harder and treat people better than anyone else. So I stuck to that. I will do whatever I can to work as hard as I can to make you content, and no one can work harder than me, and no one can treat you better than me. And if I stuck with that, whether I was talking to the vendor, the FedEx man who walked in the door, or to my patient, I knew that would get me ahead. And that has always been something that's gotten me ahead. And to this day, like we started XOMD, I said the same thing. I may not be the first skincare line out there, and there may be people with a lot more money and a lot more backing, but no one can treat patients and no one can treat consumers better than I can. And no one can work harder than me.
Yeah, and that's a big differentiator, just the working hard, which is what people take for granted. They think they're going to put up an Instagram and then people are going to come to them because he worked very hard, 200 papers and then multitude of books, subliminally exposed. I remember I read that one. I love that one. And it's just like so many books. And from a media perspective, for those who are seeking to build their influence, it's like, how did the research and then also writing books kind of add to how the public perceived you? How did it help you deepen your understanding of everything that you were doing? And how did it actually kind of guide your path as you continue to create?
Well, a lot of things were serendipitous. I didn't go out there with a goal to create a following, whether it was on stage, in books, or in social media.
Mhm,
I wanted to change the world, way, change the way people think.
mhm,
And that was my mission. That was my goal. Now I can do that with any media. At the time, I was teaching a class, a medical school class, and I was teaching an undergraduate course at DePaul University on the science of beauty, its impact on culture and business in America, because I love to teach. So I was teaching that. And my syllabus turned into a book. And someone came to me and said, "This is really interesting information. Why don't you make it a consumer book?" So I did that. And then that book hit. Now it took a long time. I had 14 rejections, but eventually came out and it was a New York Times bestseller. And I was really lucky with that because that opened a lot of doors for me when that book became popular. But that was before social media. Social media was started in 2014, 15. I didn't have no social media presence and I wasn't very interested in it at the time.
mhm,
But then I realized something. Social media has to be unique to you. It's not what someone else does. You can't do what I do, and you can't do what Kylie Jenner does. You have to do what you do and what you like to do. And that's how you approach social media. And I realized that at the time I love philosophy. I
mhm,
love art history. I love evolutionary biology. So I started putting my thoughts out there that I was writing in books and articles, and I started putting it on social media. And it wasn't about plastic surgery. Yeah, I love plastic surgery too, but I wasn't putting up my before and after pictures or talking about a better nose job. I was talking about how to achieve more in life, or have you ever thought about beauty from this perspective? And I started putting that up there, and people started liking it and watching it and reading it and asking for more. And I built a quick following with that. Now, some people are like, well, you got to post every day or you got to post 3 times a week, whatever it may be. No, you do what you're feeling comfortable with. So you like to, let's say you like to eat food. Okay, well, then show the restaurants you like to go to. Whatever you love doing, do that and you'll find your niche. You don't have to be all things to all people.
mhm.
So I started doing that. And that kind of took off. Now I have a good following. It's a super loyal following. And Sabrina, my partner as well, we both do. We don't have a million followers, although I think most people with those huge numbers, half of them are not real.
That's
But
another
we have a really
story.
strong loyal following in the professional channels, and that's been really helpful to us. And a lot of companies like the way we teach and the way we speak, and it's disciplined. You know, you can go out there and you can get more clickbait. I can run around in a bikini. Well, not me, bikini, mosquito. How about that? Or I can, yeah, I can and capture a lot of people who will be like, okay, let's click on that. But I don't. And I think that that gets old. So putting other people down, doing clickbait, while it might capture some people in the beginning, I think it gets old. And
Yes.
more importantly, I wasn't comfortable with that. So I did what I did best, and
Mhm.
it's worked for me. And that's great. And then from that, and the science of attraction is something that if you follow me on TikTok, I went from like 0 to 100,000 followers in like 3 months
Mhm.
because I talk about the science of attraction. It's
Mhm.
my passion. It's easy for me to talk about the science of attraction off the top of my head, and my staff would just ask me about it. Now, I don't
Mhm.
go on TikTok to be honest with you, but they just interview me, take it, and post it on TikTok,
Mhm.
and that has really been very, very busy. And it's talking about something I love, the science of attraction. All this together now, I'm getting paid by TikTok. I got a check from TikTok. I'm like, what are you paying me for? Because they like my content, and
I
I'm
love
getting
that.
invitations to keynote speeches now
Yes.
every week or so somewhere in the world to talk about my
Yes.
philosophies and ideas, and it's really rewarding. And most importantly, my kids think
Mhm.
I'm cool
I
because I'm on
mean, that's a
TikTok.
win.
Yeah,
That's a win. If your
yeah.
kids think you're cool, that's a very big win. I know you have a new baby who doesn't know what's cool or not, but they're gonna know. He's gonna know when he gets older. And so with that, it's like I did just think that's so poignant that you said that though, that you have to do what's true to you and stop trying to follow the masses because unfortunately that happens all too often. People try to follow the masses because there's a lack of sense of self. And that is the
That's
real challenge that so many people are dealing with, especially in our industry. They come in, they haven't taken the time to understand who they are and what they love and what they're passionate about. So then they become a sheep instead of being a leader, right?
so authenticity is, I think, the word we're getting at here, and that's so critically important to be authentic. Yes, you have to be creative, and that maybe that's some pressure to be creative, but creative inspiration happens everywhere and anywhere. You walking in
Mhm.
the elevator, you get a creative inspiration. You watch a movie, you get a creative inspiration. So just write that creative inspiration down, and then be yourself, and that is what I think captures other people's attentions.
I think so too. And so now getting into creative inspiration, we have XOMD. So I've been using it, And so I had the pleasure of, seeing you guys in Paris or have you at the opening. And so I want to talk about XOMD a little bit in the Mood-ceuticals. So before we go into that, can you like just give our audience a simple definition of attraction beyond just appearance? Like what's attraction?
So it's a great question, and unless we know unless we define the semantics of what it means, we can't have a discussion. And this is a huge problem we have in medicine and science in particular. Is no one's really clearly defined what beauty is, and we can talk about beauty from multiple perspectives. We can talk from an artistic perspective, a philosophical perspective, a religious perspective. But if we can talk about it from a scientific perspective, we have to all agree on what beauty means. And these colloquial terms like "oh, beauty's in the eye of the beholder" or "beauty's beyond skin deep," that doesn't work because that doesn't mean anything to a scientist. So I've worked hard to define what I think beauty is. And beauty, in my opinion, and this is my research to back it up, is beauty is the rawest form of communication. It says I'm healthy, I'm well, and I have good genes, and it's evolutionary preserved throughout all species. So what does that mean? Beauty is the way you signal to someone else your genes, how
Mhm.
healthy you are, and whether or not you make a good mate for them. We have one purpose on earth if you follow evolutionary science. Now, I'm not talking about from a religious or spiritual perspective, so I want to make sure we politically recognize that I'm not talking about that. What I'm
Mhm.
talking about is from a scientific perspective. Our only purpose on earth is to procreate, to find the perfect mate for you, which may not be for someone else, but find that perfect mate which you can figure out because you can sense that person. I'll go into that in a little bit. But you need to find that perfect mate. You need to procreate and create a better species than the two of you, a better genetic fitted, a more genetically fit species than you, or genetically fit person than you two. So that's the goal.
Mhm.
Now, if we take that backwards, introduce that back to how beauty fits into that. Beauty is processed in your amygdala, the most primitive part of your brain, along with fear, risk. because those are the two things that you need to survive. You need to be careful of the lions around the corner. So you need to quickly process that. And you need to quickly be able to identify someone who's got good genes for you. That's what beauty does. So beauty says that person has good genes and you pick up on it. Now that is all subconscious. You don't think about that. You feel it. And this is a very important point. I actually have a keynote lecture coming up on this soon. But beauty is what you feel. You sense it. When a person is around you and they're beautiful to you, you get a warm feeling. Your heart rate goes up. Your blood pressure may go up a little bit. You get a dopamine surge. You will get a norepinephrine surge. Your oxytocin levels will go up. All this happens at a subconscious level. Women are much better at it than men. Yes, pheromones is part of it. You smell, or it's actually, the pheromones are actually odorless, but you pick up on the scent of the people around you.
Yeah.
And within that scent is a sampling of their genes. So that happens to all of us. You ever have someone walk by, you're like, oh my gosh, that guy is so cute. And you don't know what it is. Your girlfriend's been nothing, so what you do, you can't explain it. You don't have to. That's you, your body saying he's the right guy. He's got the genes. Now, it doesn't mean that he's the guy to marry, because he may not be a good guy to marry. He may not have a job. He may be, a narcissist. There may be all kinds of reasons why he's not a good catch for you. But from a genetic standpoint, his genes and your genes match and would make a good species. So that's beauty. Now, animals have the same thing. Plants, anything that's beautiful or possesses fertility, we find beautiful. Anything that has those character traits, we find beautiful. So that's beauty. That's different from attraction. There's a distinction. And my research is in between beauty and attraction. Attraction is what captures your disinterested interest, is what I say. Now, this is something that you think about attraction. So this is where cultural influences matter. Adornments, what they're wearing as far as jewelry, their clothing styles, their posture, their hair, their makeup. And it could be something that's most important of all of this, and that's confidence. Because nothing is more attractive than confidence. And in my opinion, confidence trumps everything else. So someone can be the most beautiful person in the world, but they're depressed, they're miserable, they're narcissistic, they're not going to be attractive to you. Then you can have someone else who's not the most beautiful person, not the most genetically fit person, but darn, he or she walks across the room, they strut across the room, they're comfortable in their space. You're like, that's the person I want to hang out with. That's the person I want to be with. That person's attractive. So attractive is conscious. 50% of what you find attractive in someone else is beauty. 50% this conscious part that is, I call attraction.
Yeah.
So that is the difference between beauty and attraction. They're related. They're part of one another, but they're different. And attraction is the conscious component of it. What I do in plastic surgery and aesthetic medicine is I make people more attractive. I don't make them more beautiful. You're born beautiful. I don't change that. But I do what it takes to make you more attractive. And how do I do that? The number one key factor of how I do that is confidence. If I can build your confidence, you'll walk out my door with a smile on your face and a skip in your step, and everyone's going to hang out with you, whether it's your business coworkers, your family, your kids, or that new guy that you're interested in, or your husband or spouse. That's what I do. And attraction and confidence and good feelings of happiness spreads up to 3 degrees. So if you're happy and you feel good about yourself, the people around you feel good about yourself. If you're happy and you feel good about yourself, guess what? Your disease burden goes down. In other words, you have a healthier lifestyle. Yeah. So much in this world is advantageous to you. You may get a better job. You may make more friends. You may be more confident in who you are. So we are in the confidence business. We're not in the beauty business. And that's where most aesthetic doctors make the biggest mistake, because they think, I need to make this person more beautiful. Mm-hmm. No. If you try to make it more beautiful, you get too big of lips, you get too big of cheeks. You can't make someone more beautiful sometimes.
Yes.
But you can certainly make them more confident, make them feel good about themselves. And that's what we need to do. And that's how we make people more attractive.
And so with that, even going into, even before we go more into like the Mood-ceuticals themselves, like going into like the patient journey when someone's in the chair, because obviously, the attraction is 50% based on how someone's confidence is. Obviously, they have to be doing things outside of the practice to maintain that, because yes, they have a good feeling with you. They're 3 degrees higher, but then how do they maintain that? And how do you think people in plastic surgery or aesthetics, what have you, can work with their patients to say, what is your holistic journey of confidence and attraction that you're taking, so that it doesn't just stop when you walk out my door and then something brings you down in the next 10 minutes? How do you guide someone holistically?
So I think you're alluding to something that's really important that's happening really quickly right now, and is that our field is merging with holistic health and wellness and sexual health and wellness. So you're looking at the fields coming together. We're all starting to recognize that we're part of all the same thing, and that's where making people feel good about themselves, feel healthier, project a healthier lifestyle, and then that then goes out to the rest of their existence. So I want to try to make them feel more confident. And, like the GLPs are making people super confident. We have a whole new group of cohort of people who are like confident because they're controlling their appetite and their emotions, and they're looking better and feeling better. So that confidence level is going up. So you're seeing a lot more of this today. And I try to tell them that, when you leave my office, you have to do what makes you feel good about yourself. And too often I have daughters. So if anyone who has kids out there, you probably know this, your kids, I want to be in that group. I want to be in that group. No, be in the group where you are doing what you love doing best. So if you like going to church, then go to church and sing in the church choir. If you want to be in cheerleading camp, then go to cheerleading camp. If you want to be in a book club, then go to the book club. Wherever you feel you're doing your best and you're passionate about it, go do that, because that's where you're going to find confidence. That's where confidence exists. It doesn't exist in a group that you're not supposed to be in. And we try so hard to be in a group we're not supposed to be in. So do what you love doing. And then the people that you meet there are going to be like you. And you're going to find a person of the opposite sex or your current sex, whatever you're looking for, a romantic interest. You're going to find your romantic interest there. You're going to find friends there. Your confidence is going to be compounded.
Yes. And with that, and the last thing I want to ask about that is like, what guardrails do you kind of like put in place? Because obviously, you want to be ethical without over promising to your patients that their life is going to change from coming to you. So how do you talk about those things ethically with a patient?
It's a great question too, but I don't tell people I'm going to promise you, I'm going to make you more confident. I don't promise people anything. I'm here to guide you, ambassador you, steward you. I'll give you the knowledge I know and my experience, and I'll tell you what I think is going to work best for you. But it's only after you tell me what you want. Now, 9 times out of 10, if I talk to my patients and I ask question after question after question, and I listen, and I listen, and I listen some more. And this is the hardest part for aesthetic physicians, especially plastic surgeons, because yes, we have big egos. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. But
Yep.
it's to tame your ego and listen. And don't tell him or her, oh, you need this laser resurfacer, you need your eyes done, because that's not what they're there for.
Yes.
Listen to what they're there for, and they'll tell you. And oftentimes a patient will come and say, Dr. Dayan, what do you think I need? You're the expert. I'm like, well, what bothers you? Always they'll open up and they'll tell me. And eventually it gets to the point where it's bothering them. I'm like, okay, let's work on that. And then I can give them their options. I got, a very invasive option or a minimally invasive option, or we could table it for now. So I'm here to help ambassador you and figure out what's important to you. And then I slot them in where I think it's going to work best for them. And I can't tell you how many times someone walks out my door where I say, no, you're not a good candidate. I would put it at 50% or higher, especially at this point in my career. In fact, I saw a patient back this week who was like, Dr. Dayan, I'm back to you because 7 years ago you told me not to do my nose. Now I'm here for my eyes. I'm like,
Wow.
oh, I said no to you. She's like, yes, because I respected you so much because you told me no. So no is often the right answer. And we're hesitant to sometimes say that, but it's a really powerful and sometimes the right answer.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that. And I think some people, it's the balance of like, everyone's trying to survive, obviously, too. And so they're trying to balance being ethical while also they're in the beauty business where they know if they change something about someone, they're going to get money, right? And so it's like that's like a balance that people have to do. And so, I want to move on into the skin brain social access or have you. And if you could talk a little bit more about that feedback loop, skin, brain, behavior, social outcomes. And if you could talk a little bit more about the research behind that and how that goes into the products that you have made with XOMD.
So I think the story is important to it. And I've been studying the science of attraction for many years, written books and 200 articles or so or more now talking about the science of attraction. Sabrina is an expert in this science, and that's my partner in life and in parenthood and in business now. She is the expert in dermatology and skincare. She's number 5 in the world by Newsweek, or 5 in the US by Newsweek. So she's really well known, well established in skincare. So combining our two thinking, we're like, what is different and unique? And both of us have had so many opportunities to slap our names on brands. And I will tell you, most doctors do that. It's like, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so, this is my brand. But they didn't really formulate it. They didn't really come up with a new concept. Someone put their name on it, and that's how they're selling it. And I've had that opportunity. It's kind of like Michael Jordan's got a steakhouse down here. He doesn't make the steaks, okay, I promise you. But his name's on the door. I could have done that. So could have Sabrina many times. And we didn't. And we both have been behind many of the brands that you see out there today. We help with the science and the claims behind them. So we've got a lot of experience in this area. If we're going to do something special and unique and different, it had to be something that was groundbreaking. So we talked about it back and forth, and we were sheltering in place during COVID, and you all know how COVID was, and the loneliness and isolation started creeping on everyone, and we realize it more even now so than we did back then. And Sabrina gets pregnant. And how did that happen?
Attraction.
Sabrina gets pregnant and she glows and she lights up the room. And I am like, oh my gosh, that's it. Oxytocin. We have got to find a way to bottle that
Wow.
because no one is more beautiful than a pregnant woman.
Mhm.
We all see it. Or when someone's in love, they glow. That glow is real. It's measurable and it's quantifiable, and it's been proven that that glow exists, and it's oxytocin. So oxytocin is too big of a molecule to get through the skin, but we found an ingredient, a jasmine derivative, that stimulates oxytocin receptors in the skin. And the more I dug into the research behind oxytocin, I started to realize that our skin and our brain are so connected. And it's the science is there. It's just we don't talk about it. I'm like, how did we miss this? All of us, the whole medical community, the whole aesthetic community. How do we miss the fact that we have 5 million free nerve endings in our skin, or that we have dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and oxytocin in our skin, and in high levels? It's produced in our skin, and it's also the receptors in our skin. They're anti-inflammatory, they're anti-reduce pain, they increase euphoria, analgesia. All these things work at our skin level, and they are good for the skin. And we know that because when those hormones are high, you feel good about yourself. Also, your skin looks good. It's the certificate of health and wellness. And I started doing more research on this and digging deeper. What else can we do besides oxytocin? So we found a way to put oxytocin into a formula, but then we wanted to add in some other things. So Sabrina added in some phosphatidylserine and other phospholipids that she knows are good for the skin barrier that are also bioactives. We also added in like beta glucan, vitamin C, vitamin E. We added in ferulic acid. We added in other products that are humectants and emollients that we know would look great for the skin. And then I'm like, let's put a pheromone in there. She's like, what? I'm like, come on, let's try it. I believe in pheromones. It's controversial in the world of evolutionary biology, but I'm like, let's put it in there. So I put a pheromone in there. Then we had to get it to play nice, and that's not easy. So, we formulated multiple times, multiple iterations. We found a formulator in Southern California. We worked with him back and forth, and we finally got a formula.
Wow.
And once we were set on that formula, and that didn't happen quick or easy, we tested it. And then we did a double-blind placebo randomized control trial. And for those people out there who have a science background, you'll recognize the rigorousness of a double-blind placebo randomized control trial. It is almost never done in cosmetics because you don't have to. You can go right to market. It's very expensive to do these trials. The risk is very high because if your product doesn't work, you just proved it failed. So why are you going to do that? So companies don't do these studies. We decided to do it because I wasn't going to say anything until I could prove this could work. So I'm not putting my name on something unless I can prove it works.
Yes.
So we do the clinical trials. Our data was overwhelmingly positive. I mean, not just a little bit, overwhelmingly positive. We had p-values to 0.001, which means highly statistically significant in skin quality, dewiness, radiance, skin tone evenness, reduced redness, reduced dryness, all statistically significant at 4 weeks and at 8 weeks against placebo. Then I looked at many other soft factors that people don't often look at in skincare, but I promise you they will now. Do you make a better first impression? In other words, observers looking at you, do they think you make a better first impression? And yes, our people who wore XOMD were statistically significant, made a better first impression, were more attractive, looked 3 years younger. Placebo, not at all. Then I looked at things such as sexual satisfaction. Now, no one's ever done that before in a skincare product, but we looked at sexual satisfaction. This is where the data was so overwhelmingly positive. 90% of categories that we tested for people wearing XOMD was statistically significant positive. Placebo was 0. 90% versus 0. I'm like, that's got to be a statistical error. There's no way to be that high of a difference. So I sent it back to the statistician. She goes, no, it's true. I'm like, it is?
Wow.
It was true. And at the end of the study, people were taking the bottles and scraping the stuff out of the bottom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have something special. Their confidence went up also. I measured confidence. Once again, things that aren't normally measured in clinical studies looking at skincare. Confidence went as high as 86% after 8 weeks. So I'm like, let's get to market, Sabrina. We got to get this out there. This is great. She's like, no, we need to create our own packaging. If we're going to go this route and it's going to be unique and different, it's got to have our own signature packaging. And I'm like, really? Come on. So I conceded to her. We went ahead and we did our own packaging. And now we've won 3 design awards, or 4. I think we had a 4th one coming now for our packaging. It's so unique and so different. So when it sits on your shelf, it looks really good. In fact, I just had someone call that they left it in the bathroom because they were at this fancy hotel in Florida, and it looked like it was part of the decor. So I thought that was kind of funny. But it's really attractive packaging, and that took a long time. We had to go back and forth. That took another 6 months. So then we finally went to market. I presented at a conference last year in January of 25, and there's been just so much excitement around it. We're critically acclaimed. We're winning. I mean, I think we've gotten 12 or 13 awards right now for its benefits.
Yes.
We have science behind it, so we're patent pending it. We have unique packaging. We're available in most doctors' offices. As doctors are calling me left and right. You were at a party in Europe. I mean, the launch in France was unbelievable.
It was so great. Yeah.
100 people outside in line waiting to get in. It was the most beautiful party I've ever been to. I felt like I was in a James Bond movie. I couldn't believe I was even there.
It was beautiful. Yeah. I was like, wow, you guys really outdid yourselves. Like that venue was chef's kiss. It was
Yeah, L'Aventure. Well, our European distributor did that. Now we have Chile, just got South America got approved.
Oh, wow.
Canada's now selling in Canada. Middle East, we're hearing back soon, but I think in the Middle East it's going to be approved soon. So because we're clean, we intentionally created it clean, which most products are not clean. In fact, many of the products that you love and adore in the States have to reformulate before they go to Europe. We didn't, because we created it intentionally clean so we can get through regulatory. And we did. We flew through all the regulatories. So we're going to hopefully be global. We're just starting with consumers, and consumers don't really know about us as much. So that's where we're trying to figure that out. And so we're available on Shopify for consumers if they want to get to us. But right now, most of us at doctor's offices, but you can get us online too.
I think that's great. And I've only been using it for a few days. I'll ask my husband.
Yeah. We don't have to ask him. He's going to say something to you. Just wait.
We have date night coming up. So
there you go.
I love it. And so it's like, you guys have done so much research. It's like, and I know that you're continuing to do more research, but it's just like, what is still hypothesis, and what do you think is on the horizon for even future research opportunities? You might be working on something now. I don't know.
So we strongly believe that we're ideal for hormonal health. And because oxytocin levels drop during menopause, and along with estrogen levels, and that affects your skin, we believe that this is a product that should be great. Now, we don't have oxytocin in there, so it's really important to make that distinction. We have a jasmine derivative that stimulates oxytocin in the skin, but oxytocin is unique because when it goes up in your skin, it causes you systemically to release more. Same thing when you get hugged by someone or when you kiss someone, your oxytocin levels go up. Well, the same thing happens, we believe, with our product, but we didn't test actual oxytocin levels. Having said that, we think that we're ideal for women who are going through transitions in life because their skin gets dry. If their epidermis thins, we have peptides in our skin also, which helps with collagen and elastin production. So we think we help with that because you lose 30% of your collagen within the first 5 years after menopause.
Yes.
And your skin gets significantly drier. You lose your ceramides and you lose your hyaluronic is 50% depleted by the time you're age 50. So all those things we think that we're helping with as well. So we are now in the process of testing it, in particular in women who are menopausal. So stay tuned. So our research and development continues along with the travel size kit, which we're working on right now. So Sabrina's hard at work on a mini X and a mini O.
Ooh, that's great. I love that. And, and a couple last question I have for you before we end here is just like, doctors are marketing it and everything. And in many times you may not be in control of how people actually talk about your product. And how do you kind of ensure that XOMD isn't sold as a solution for mental health or relationships? Because I'm sure there's someone out there saying, oh my goodness, your relationship's going to get so much better if you just buy XOMD and all this type of stuff. So how do you kind of prevent that?
So that's a great point. Absolutely not. We are not a product for mood stabilization, and we're not a relationship or a sexual satisfaction product per se. We are a skin quality product. We make your skin look better. And we want to be careful with this because our data was so profound, people are extrapolating that for the relationships and for the mood enhancement. No, we're not that. We are not a drug. We're not a therapeutic. We make your skin look better. And as everyone knows, when your skin looks better and you feel good about yourself, your confidence goes up. So as far as we know, that's the best way that our mechanism of action is working. And no different than when you hug someone or kiss someone or feel good about yourself, our skincare gives you a hug. And that's kind of how I want to think about it. So it's not for relationships. So you're right. I got to be careful that other people don't market it that way. And we are pretty tightly controlled on that right now. We have enough control that you're not going to see us on the Amazons of the world. You're not going to see us all over the place. We're controlling it very carefully. I mean, we spent a lot of time, energy, and effort. And most importantly, all of our professional capital. Our reputations are on the line. We're not going to do something that's going to hurt our reputations, because that's been something we've spent 20 years or 25 years building. So the product has our name on it, and we stand behind it.
Yeah. And my last question is, I want you to speak to an exhausted practice owner who's like 2 years in or have you, and kind of walk them through, like, how should they think about attraction, not in their patients, but in how they attract the right people, the right opportunities, and also even like, I would say the future of their clinic. How should they think about themselves? Because that self-confidence also animates out and how their businesses actually grow.
I think the same way I would talk about it, where I talk about confidence for an individual or a high school student or anyone for that matter, is do what you love doing, and the rest of it comes easy. We struggle when we try to be what we're not. We struggle when we watch other people on social media and they tell us what to do. We struggle when we have these business gurus tell us what to do. I don't worry about the competition. I just do what I love doing most, and everything else follows. And that's kind of a philosophy I've taken right now. Now, does that mean, could you make a lot more money and do something else? You could get lucky and you could catch a rocket ship, but you also may not, but you're probably not going to go broke. So do what you love doing best, and you're more likely to be satisfied with what you do, and the money and the success and the fame will follow. And I can't reiterate that any stronger than I just did, because I think it's so important. I give that message to my kids, to my students. You got to do what you love doing, because at the end of the day, if you haven't achieved the professional success you want, you can feel good about yourself. And that's key. And then the other thing is, you cannot half-ass it. You've got to work hard. Anyone who thinks it's going to come without working hard, you're wrong. You're going to have to work hard. So just be ready for that.
I love that. And with that, guys, you can find XOMD skincare. We're going to have everything about the skincare in the show notes. And so if someone wants to actually bring it into their practice, they just contact your team and you guys can carry it in your practices nationwide. And now we know it's international as well. So thank you, Dr. Dayan.
It's my pleasure. Anyone who joins on with us, we're super thankful and appreciative, and we go out of our way to help you grow your practices with all kinds of co-marketing collaboration. So we're out here to support those who support us. We appreciate it. And thank you, Leslie, for having me on here. Thanks for coming to our XOMD launch party in Europe. It was nice to have you there.
Same. Thank you so much. Until next time, guys, I'm Leslie Tracey, your host. Bye.
Bye.
Want more clarity like this? Join the Branded Practice newsletter community. I write about strategy, systems, and brand leadership straight to your inbox. Go to diamondhandsmedia.com to sign up. And if this episode hit, share it with someone still building without a brand. This is the Diamond Hands Podcast. Thanks for listening. Now go lead.